One of the most important things in soap opera acting is reacting. This does not mean acting again.
Hey, it's me, it's JSB, and today on Acting is Reacting, well, we're back to the Songs of 24 series. For those of you who don't know what that is, this year is 2024, so I'm listening to some songs that have some connection to the number 24. As with the first one in the series, which was Harry Chapin's Taxi, I'm today listening to a song that was released as a single and peaked at number 24 in the US charts. That is, well, you've seen it already, it's Chicago, Dialogue Parts 1 and 2. Um, Now, those of you who are complete chart geeks like myself will instantly be saying, there are two Chicago songs you could have picked for this, so why did you go with this one? And anybody who knows the other one, just drop it down in the comments below. First one to comment with the correct answer without Googling is a legend. That's all I can say. Anybody who doesn't know and is therefore normal, just carry on. Well, there's a reason that I chose this one over the other one. Actually, there's two reasons. There's multiple reasons why I chose this one. For a start, it's great, as is the other one. It's also doubling as the first in a new series, which is going to be called A Long Song, Listen Along. That's, again, Long Song, Listen Along. Those of you who have seen my Random Foreplay series will have noted that I've always intended to keep those as one video across 4 songs, but I've been stymied by, in both cases so far, Whopping Great Epics coming up, and having to split those into 2. So I thought I'd banish songs that are 7 minutes or more from those for a while and listen to those separately. There's plenty of them. I do have a prog streak in my veins, so some of those will turn up at times. And there's just other longer songs from various genres that we can get to at some point. And finally, those who are aware of Chicago's unique album titling system or album numbering system, it's one and the same, might note that this track also leads off the 1998 compilation The Heart of Chicago Volume 2, which is officially designated as Chicago 24. Late 90s, Chicago were not really recording new material. It was a couple of new songs on a compilation or a live album or Christmas music or anything that wasn't involving too much effort for them in the time where their sales had gone off a cliff, basically. I mean, it's the 90s. Everybody's sales had gone off a cliff from their era. So that's the reason for that. And now something about the track itself. It is, of course, from Chicago 5, released in 1972, and confusingly to some, is their 4th studio album, as Chicago 4 was the Carnegie Hall Live massive, whopping, great box set. This single, as we know, reached number 24, which by Chicago standards is pretty low. It followed up Saturday in the Park, which was a number 3 hit and their biggest at that point, and the album itself was also their biggest and still is, in terms of chart success at least. Chicago 17 sold a boatload more, but that's another story. But this album was number 1 for 9 weeks, which was their longest run at the top. First of a 5-album run where they all made number 1, and were basically the biggest American band of the early 70s, which is kind of a fact that a lot of people have forgotten. So this track is written by Robert Lamm, who wrote just about everything on Chicago 5. But on this particular track, we have lead vocals in part 1 from the great Terry Kath and Peter Cetera, who are having the dialogue section of the song. And then we get the group vocals in part 2, which is more jammy and singing along and upbeat and optimistic. And looking back on it now, slightly naive, but at the time, maybe we really did think we could make it happen. You didn't, and we're not going to either, so is what it is. But doesn't take away from the power of the track, which we'll get to now, because I've talked enough. So let's have a listen to Chicago, Dialogue, Parts 1 and 2. Now, Terry and Peter don't just dominate on the vocals on this, you've got them instrumentally as well. It's basically... Terry's mainly playing a rhythm guitar on this track, which leaves Pete room for this great lead bass work. And he is one of the great bass players, or was. His biggest crime is not all the power ballads of the 80s, it's putting his bass down at the same time.
Are you optimistic about the way that things are going? No, I never ever think of it at all. Don't you ever worry when you see what's going down? Well, I try to mind my business, that is no business at all. When it's time to function as a feeling human being, with your bachelor of arts help you get by. I hope to study further, a few more years or so. I also hope to keep a steady high.
Hey, at least he's honest.
Will you try to change things? Use the power that you have. Power of a million new ideas. What is this power you speak of and the need for things to change? I always thought that everything was fine.
Listen to that bass, just listen to it.
Don't you feel repression? The potion in around. The campus here is very, very free. Don't it make you angry where war is dragging on? Well, I hope the president knows what he's into. I don't know. Ooh, I just don't know. Don't you see starvation in the city where you live? All the niggas hunger. All the niggas
Terry's vocals, man, he's underrated as a guitarist, but he's even more underrated as a vocalist, I would suggest. Whereas everyone knows Peter's a great singer.
Thank you for the talk, you know, you really eased my mind. I was troubled by the shapes of things you come. Well, if you had my outlook, you're feeling good enough. Always think that everything was fine. Everything was fine.
Part 2. And I didn't want to talk too much over the dialogue because the lyrics are so important to that phase of the track, but excellent stuff from Robert, really succinctly encapsulating two sides of an argument and making it feel like a real conversation. I still loved how the horns were really quite subtly used for the most part in that track. They built up as the track built up. We're really getting some horns now and some Terry guitar. So it's kind of Hey Jude in the structure. You've got the first 3 minutes, which is the song, and then the last 4 minutes, this is the equivalent of the Na Na Na's, but a lot more interesting. Yes, as I was saying, a bit naive. What's the time? You can't fault them for that. We can change the world now. If I may. This must have really cooked live. before my time, obviously. I have always loved the horns, whether it's Chicago or anybody, but Chicago gave me the love of the horns. I haven't even mentioned Danny Seraphim yet. He's on the drums, if you don't know. Of course, the song ends extremely abruptly, mid-line, so look out for that. What did I tell you? All right. Okay, well, that was Chicago, Dialogue Parts 1 and 2, and as I said before, it's written by Robert Lamb. Any other writer would say, I wrote the song, so I had to dominate it. I've got to sing it, and it's got to be keyboard heavy because I'm the keyboardist. Are there any keyboards in that? I don't even know. Robert was such a generous songwriter and so much a team player within the band that, I mean, he wrote 8 of the 10 songs on Chicago 5. He does sing, and there are keyboards on a fair number of them, but throughout the early years of the band in particular, he was always writing songs to showcase the whole group and to highlight things that needed to be highlighting, whether it was giving Terry room to stretch in a solo like in 25 or 64, or giving Peter the chance to do lead vocals at a time before he was really a prolific songwriter himself. I just think there are so many people who could have done the same to the betterment of their own bands and didn't for whatever reason. Mainly ego, you have to think. So props to Robert for that. He is one of the great American songwriters, and I mean, Chicago have their mixed history makes them so underrated for the most part, because these days people seem to mostly remember and focus on the 80s stuff, to the point that people think that's when they were the most successful, and they weren't. They were a much bigger band in the 70s, and a much better one for that matter. I mean, as I say, they were basically the biggest American band of the early 70s, no question. I mean, just look at the chart history, it's astonishing. This particular song is probably not that well remembered because, as I say, number 24 is quite a low position for them. And it didn't make its way onto an official numbered compilation in full until the 1998 compilation that we've just been hearing this from. So I always thought Chicago 9, the first greatest hits album, should have been a double and had this and all the other singles that were left off it, and a few of the key early album tracks as well. I think if that had happened, there's a chance that Chicago's legacy might be a little stronger than it is, because that would have been something you could point to. And that's both hugely commercially viable, but also shows them at their most artistic and creative as well. To a degree, the first album gets some of that love, but the whole Terry Kath era, barring Chicago 10, which I really can't stand, deserves reappraisal and reevaluation to a degree I doubt it will ever get. now, unfortunately. But some of us know, and we're the lucky ones. So if you're one of them, hooray. Thanks for joining me. And that is today's Song of 24. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a loose, light, casual Chicago fan and you've not heard that before, go check out the early stuff. Seriously. I hope you enjoyed it, and I certainly did. I don't know how many times I've heard the song. I've had Chicago 5 since a long time. Early 90s, I'm going to suggest. Or probably more mid 90s. Because I had it on CD. And I didn't have a CD player until 1993. Seriously. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you on the next video, when and indeed if that ever happens. Bye for now.